Good morning, everyone. We are learning Mishna Chala. We are in Perek Daled, Chapter 4, Mishna Gimel, Mishna 3. I dedicate this morning's learning in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shlomis Rabinowitz, Shlomis Bas Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer. Okay, Shnei Kavim. A person made two doughs that would total 2 kav if they were together. But they are separate. He made them separately. And as we mentioned in the previous Mishnah, we're following the opinion that says that the obligation of challah comes when you use 2 kav of flour to make the dough that will then become obligated in challah. The point is, though, that you made 2 doughs that each one on its own is not the amount that has obligation of challah. If you could combine them together, then they would be. And how do you combine them together in this case? The kav oireis a kav truma be'emtza. He's got another kav that he used to make a dough from, but this is rice flour, or it's made from truma. So he's got these 2 doughs. Each dough was made from the type of flour as an obligation of challah. They're both wheat, let's say. Okay, they're both wheat. And they're both the same type. And now we want to combine them. But the way he wants to combine them now is by connecting them through another dough, which we had a case like this before. Instead of them actually connecting with each other, you've got something in between that's connected to each one. So the dough in the middle is attached to both of them, attached to the point, following the opinion that says, attached to the point that if you would pull them apart, some of what was pulled apart some of the dough would stick to the part that was pulled apart. That's the kind of, that's called neshicha, that's called biting. So you've got the 2 doughs that are obligated in challah, and you've got another dough in the middle that's connected to them and a strong connection. If you pull them apart, some of it would stay with the other. But that bridge dough is made from something that doesn't have an obligation of challah, either because it's rice dough, there's no obligation to separate challah from rice dough, or because it may be made from a species that has a type that has obligation of challah, but it's truma. And we've learned previously, truma, there's no obligation to separate challah from it. So the dough in the middle, that's meant to be the bridge, it's meant to connect them all together, is from something that doesn't have an obligation for challah at all. And in that situation, we say, Eino mitztarfen. They will not combine. If the bridge in the middle is from something that's not obligated in challah, it cannot create that connection of all of that, cannot make that connection between the 2 other doughs to say, we see one unit here to create an obligation of challah. And so no matter how big that dough in the middle is, even if it would be the size of something that would have its own obligation for challah, doesn't make a difference because it's not something that has an obligation of challah. However, let's say the case is the following. Let's say the middle dough is made from davar shenitla chalasai be'emsa. Let's say in the middle is something that challah was taken from. That means it was a dough that had an obligation for challah. And the case is that you actually took the challah. So we've got 2 doughs that we're trying to create an obligation to take challah from them. The middle dough that's connecting them, that's connected to both of them and trying to combine them, is something that challah already was taken from. It's exempt from challah. Not that it's exempt, not that it never has an obligation of challah. It had an obligation of challah, but it's been exempted. Challah's been separated from it. Then mitztarfen, then already the 2 doughs on the ends can be mitztarf, can combine together to be considered one to create an obligation for challah. Because that middle dough is something that already had an obligation for challah. Meaning, as long as it's a type of thing that has an obligation for challah, it can combine the 2, even if the challah is already separated. So there's no obligation anymore here. But since it's the type that would have an obligation of challah, therefore we say, or it's actually a dough that would have the obligation of challah, because not truma. Then that could now be that bridge. It now can be that middle, that can be that point that connects them all together to say now is obligation of challah. Interestingly, the Mefarshim, the commentaries point out that even, excuse me, if the Mishnah says that all I need for the middle dough to make the combination of the two outer doughs is something that had an obligation for challah, then that means that even if the dough in the middle is a barley dough, which we know if you wanted to actually connect the barley dough and the wheat dough to make just between the two of them an obligation for challah, that wouldn't work. It has to be min b'mina, to be the same type. So even though a barley dough and a wheat dough can't connect in that manner, but the barley dough can connect with the wheat doughs to be the bridge to bring the two doughs together to make them be seen as one. Because as long as it's something that has the obligation, something that would have the obligation, as long as it's a dough that would have the obligation of challah, it can be that bridge. It can be that thing that connects the two other doughs together, for those two other doughs to be seen as together, for them to create an obligation of challah between them. Okay, we continue with the laws of Lashon Harah from the Chavetz Chaim, Klal Yud, chapter 10, Sif Yud Gimel, paragraph 13. So until now, the Chavetz Chaim was saying that in a situation where you are the victim of what someone did to you, you cannot go tell others about it, to let people know about wrongdoing so that they should learn not to do that, because you're not going to be sincere in that case. You're going to for sure have your ulterior motives. You're going to have your feelings of getting back at the person when you do that. Now, the Chavetz Chaim says, but there will be a situation where even though you are the victim, you could tell others what someone else did to you, because there is a manner where that can be l'toy elis, to be considered you're doing it for a constructive purpose and not to get back at the person. Nonetheless, it appears to me, says the Chavetz Chaim, the mumeshayir shal yedei zeh sheyisaper la'anoshim ha'eich shepleni asalei avu min mama kayetze bazeh. If you size up that by telling other people about the wrong that someone did to you, you yourself can have a benefit from it in the future, and benefit doesn't mean putting the guy down. Let's say you tell it to people who, if they would rebuke him, he would listen to them. And then there's a chance that he's going to pay you back, meaning he stole from you. You want to get it back. You know, you can speak to people that can convince him to pay up. You're allowed to tell it to them and ask them to help you. Now, that makes a lot of sense. If somebody wronged you monetarily, you want him to pay you. How about in a situation where there's no money involved? Let's say whether he wronged you is because he caused you suffering, he embarrassed you, he insulted you. Let's say it didn't happen yet. It's in advance, but you know that he's coming after you. He's going to come after you and embarrass you and insult you. Now you find the kind of important people or his relatives. And he'll lay out to them what's really going on. And then they will see that you're right. It's possible that they could stop him. Meaning, if the point here is that you know someone's out to get you and he's out to embarrass you. So now I'm going to speak to the people to show them that I didn't do anything wrong. He shouldn't be coming after me. And they're the kind of people who could possibly stop him from doing it. You can tell it to them. Let's say it's talking about he already went after you, he already embarrassed you, he already insulted you. But he is concerned that if he doesn't tell other people about it, he's going to come after him again. It's going to happen again. So now you want to tell others to prevent it from continuing. Anything like this, you would be able to tell other people about it. Even though by telling other people what this person has done or will do, he will be looked down upon. It will cause his status to become lower in these people's eyes. You can still say it. The intention of the person telling it is not to have him be put down. Raku writes he's trying to guard himself. She's trying to protect himself from monetary loss or from embarrassment. And therefore, being that's what his intention is, therefore he'd be permitted to tell it to other people, even though he's saying something derogatory about this person by saying that he has harmed him personally. Have a wonderful day.